All right, guys and gals, Jack here. I'm going to go over the project, one of the two projects that we'll be doing at the spring workshop coming up in March. Again, if you're watching this prior to it anyway, tickets will go on sale Saturday. It'll be the first Saturday in February, which would be the end of this week. This will be the location of it. I've got some sketches I'm going to walk through on this, and I'm also going to be using these beds here as a prop because, in the words of Tommy Chong, what we're going to be doing is the same but different, man. Specifically when I'm explaining things about the arches, etc. So let's start off with what I'm doing over here and why. I have tried, without great success, to grow berries and grapes and things like that and other perennials within the confines of my food forest, which is over here. There's some success there, but anything that's low to the ground, ducks and chicken seed. Except for the berms, which are built up by excavating from the swales. The maximum depth in this area of soil is about 11 inches, and it's sitting on rock, as many of you know have been following me for a while. So it's pretty amazing what we've built here. When I moved in, you could see the road out there easily. Now in winter, when all the trees are bare, you can't see the road. So we've had some incredible success with this, but it's really not a good food production system from a berries standpoint, small perennials. And there's some things that I really want to grow, more for mead making and wine making than anything else, but they include blackberries, grapes, gummies, which are like a large autumn olive, and some other things. Plus, I also want a place to grow a lot of perennial herbs where I don't really want to fill up the garden, which, by the way, is cover cropped right now. That's the barley and winter pea and everything that I talked about doing earlier this year. I don't really want to stick a bunch of perennial herbs in here. A few here and there is fine, but not to the level I want to do over here. Because then I have to deal with them in competition for the annuals that are grown there every year. And I really like being able to grow all that cover crop every year, take all those barley heads in a couple months, feed them to the birds, drop it as straw, and just start planting my spring crops. It's really nice. Okay, so what I've learned this year, let me fighting wind, of course, as always this time of year. What I've learned over the last year with these gardens is going this high solves all my problems. It keeps the birds 99% out. It gives me enough soil depth that I can actually grow things, and I can actually build the soil enough to hold the water. So I know this will fix the problem. So we're going to build a series of them back here, 2 rows, an 8-foot, a 16-foot, and an 8-foot. I'll explain why in a second. And the second row, the same thing. So the area I have to work with is obviously, it ends here where my aviary is, and it ends at my neighbor's fence. If I go with the original plan, which was 4 8s per row, it takes up too much space, and it ends up very close to the fence over there. It's going to be hard to manage the edges, and I don't like hard to manage edges. So this was the original plan right here. Pretty simple, and you can see that this took up 55 feet by 13 feet, and then each bed would have an arch. And I thought about just pushing these together and pushing these together and making 2 16s. That would be a very straightforward, easy build, but I would only have 1 arch then. So what I came up with, and I'll show you on the next page in a second what it looks like, is, again, an 8, pull these 2 together for a 16 and an 8. And that opens up 2 arches. Here's a hypothetical rundown of what an 8-foot bed might look like, or half of the 16-foot space. Couple bushes or shrubs, blackberries all the way across the back, and I'll talk about grapes in a minute. And then herbs interplanted throughout the entire thing. So that's the basics of it. Moving on to the what I consider the better plan. There's the layout we're actually going to build. And we go from 55 feet of total length to only 44 feet. So it's much more space conscious. Gives me a good margin on both sides. And again, we're at 13 feet this direction. My aviary is 10 feet, which means, and I don't want to go any closer to the fence. My neighbor's got these red tip bushes and all. They need to be managed. And I don't want to go any tighter on the fence than the aviary is. So there's the front of my aviary. So you're coming out to about here where my foot is. So if you kind of look, it's from here back. And that's going to work out really well. That manages the space properly. And again, I'm going to have an arch here, 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 and here made with the cattle panels. And I guess from here we can use these beds over here to describe what we're doing. So to kind of visualize this, these beds are 12 foot on the back and 8 foot on the front. They were done, and if you think about it, there's actually more bed space here than we're going to end up with back here. Effectively, we have 8 foot beds. Each section from here over, right there, that's an 8 foot board, is an 8 foot bed. So we have the same 8 footers in there, but we also have an additional 4 footer here. You might wonder why I'm not doing that. I don't have the same area to work with, and I'm working the system in. This is preserved area as campground for my workshops. So I just don't have the space, and I don't have the beautiful water feature to work with in the center. So your long ones will be a little longer than here, and your short ones will be from here to here. Arches will be done exactly the same as these are, and they will be the same width. I think I'm actually going to go 1 foot closer. That'll put the arch a little bit higher. Let me get so the sun's not hitting the camera. So the arch will actually be a little bit higher by pushing in 1 foot. You'll actually move the arch up. I think I calculated at like 4 inches. So we'll have that. Now the difference is these guys right here are about 6'4", and they're cut off so that the cattle panels would fit. I'm not going to do cattle panels for my rear trellises over there. They're just going to be wires. For the blackberries to be managed along the back, and per 8 foot, we're doing 5 blackberries. I have the species picked out, etc. already. Just a ridiculous amount of research I did for the area and different varieties to find the ones that will work best for us. So we'll have those blackberries back there. Again, your shrubs are going to be planted about midsection and split to each 8 foot section with an understory of herbs. And we will prune the shrubs, you know, about as high as we can reach into a small tree form, even though they're shrubs. So these will be gummies. And we're actually going to be growing tea, as in real tea, and some other things that you know, you'll learn about at the workshop if you get to come, or you'll see walkthroughs of once it's done. And so that big difference is that back trellis is going to be about 2 foot taller. Way up there. Way up there. So this is the really cool part about how we're going to grow our grapes. So we're going to split our difference at 4 foot coming this way with the grapes. So each arch will have a grapevine planted on each side of it. That grapevine will be trained, come this way will be easier because once I turn the camera, the light really gets bad. So we'll have a grapevine that'll come up an arch like this, and the vines will cross at the midpoint and be trained back to the cap rail. Again, that cap rail is going to be higher than this arch. It's going to be way up there. It won't be hard to work on. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to explain it right now why. So you got an 8 foot high vine. That vine will be trained to the midpoint, and it'll be trimmed off there. And that will be the length of the single vine. Okay? It'll stop, and we won't let it go past there. And we'll train that vine in that form and prune it back every year in that form. What that's going to do is, instead of having your classic cordon of your grape in a T, we'll have a single cordon trained up out of the way of everything, making use of the vertical space. And of course, these arches can grow other vines as well, like, well, I don't know, things like a hummingbird vine and things like that, just to bring in pollinators. So that's how those grapes are going to run there. And again, we have the blackberries on the back, the herbs in the front, and we're going to run in each 8 foot section 3 sprinklers. That's not a sprinkler, but it'll be stubbed up like that. And we'll run them so that those 3 sprinklers, and I think when we do a pressure test on how much spread we have, we don't really need to like drench the beds. We just need to keep them well irrigated. We should be able to run the entire system on a single turn of the valve, and we'll be able to water everything. If we can't, we'll zone it into 2 zones. So that's the basics of how this is going to go. We'll be laying out the boxes. My hope is that myself and my crew will be able to have the base of all the boxes already started, so it'll be a pretty quick project when the students come in on the workshop day that we're doing it. And most of the work will be cleaning up this area and planting and understanding the full system. It's hard to explain this, you know, without actually doing it. That's why we're doing a workshop. But I do want to go over like again, on how these grapes work, this might make more sense. So this would be a view from the back. You've got your arch, and this is actually drawn to scale. This is your grape line to train your, so you have your grapevine come up, span the gap, go on there, and be ended. Now, what makes that so elegant? It really is elegant. It's really obvious that since we're going to run that vine 8 feet down the latitude, when we bring this grape right here up over the arch and down here, it ends where the bed ends. But our ones that are planted in the 8-foot beds that come up this way, there's your 8-foot point. So you have these vines ending right where they come to touch with each other there. I'll give more information in the future on the specific varieties that we're going to be planting. But again, yes, a lot of research has been done. And this is going to be a pretty amazing project. And I want to point something out. There's people right now going, why in the heck would you spend the time, the money, the labor, the materials to put these in? You're people that have not been watching my channel for very long or follow my work on this particular property. If I start digging a hole right there, I swear to God, at this part of the property, I will dig that deep and I will be into chunk rock, okay? Like this right here. No, I thought there was one here. Anyway, we haven't dug. Here, I'll show you. I know where they are. Here, we did some other work. There's one, or just outcropping itself. This. I got about that much, and I got that. And I don't have those like one here and one here and one there. The whole thing is chunk rock like that. One layer of that rock comes up, and it's slab limestone. I mean, you could cut a sarcophagus into it. So I have choices then. I either don't grow these types of plants, or I put in this type of a system. And that's what will work in this area for the goals of the system. It also creates a very intra-connected, intertied system. I've got now my wicking beds and aviary and natural systems, aquaponics system in there. I've got my large pond and my primary annual gardens there. And I've got my perennial system, perennial bush shrub system, because the trees can handle it. The trees can grow out there. It's the shrubs, it's the bushes, etc. They'll grow over there. They won't produce in any significant quantity. We'll be able to produce more than we need here for the goals that we have. And we're also going to have a medicinal herb garden on top of it. We're going to have the shade structures, and we're going to have another teaching location. Because just as I came in here to show you guys this, and I put bench seating all around the front so they're nice and comfortable to sit on, I'll do the same thing with at least the front row there. So I'll have a second teaching environment where we could actually run multiple sessions with different instructors. Breaking into groups is something we found with larger classes, where we can pull one group over here and put one group over there and then rotate our groups and let our instructors stay put. That's going to be another function. And there's more to it than that, but this will be fun. It'll be straightforward. It won't be difficult. The bed construction is not hard. You can probably look at it and figure out how to do it. Adding the soil will be the manual labor, but the planning is where we're going to get really instructional. We have some other things planned for the workshop. I have a bed full of comfrey. We're going to be yanking that comfrey out, cut up the roots and planting tons of comfrey in here. But we'll take all of the leaf that's left over from the comfrey we harvest and replant. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to make a medicinal salve with that. I got a lot of other cool stuff coming up at this one. This will be one of those things, like, as much as I try to explain it, when it's done, it'll really make sense. I hope to see many of you guys here. Remember, we're limiting it to 30 students this time. So if you are not up and ready to go on the Telegram channel on Wednesday or Saturday morning, you probably ain't getting in.